Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 25th episode of Cultist Simulator, playing as the Dancer in the Dancer DLC. Now, it's been a little while. Usually on Monday I say this, but it has been a little while since I've taken a look at the playthrough, so I'm going to take a quick second to just review where I'm at. We do have our sending, so we're going to send that off to Kersham. Although maybe it's worth... so we did read this text before, but I should maybe just say thank you to all of you who've offered some comments lately. And in fact, on a couple of my more education-focused broadcasts, there have been some nice comments as well. And part of it has been referring to things like looking at the aspects. Now, you'll notice that I do still look at these over the course of the videos, but I do take quite a few of them for granted, partly because of familiarity with the game, and also just because, you know, I think it's a good habit to build in, but, you know, in some cases it's fine to, like, move on. Like, I wouldn't, let's say, maybe spend a lot of time looking at the aspects of a knife's secret. If I was upgrading it, maybe I would, but you know, once I've established the idea of maybe more regularly checking certain things, it's maybe not as necessary to sort of be as detailed in that. But let's maybe take a quick look here, because we haven't actually talked about what ascending is, and it'll take us a little while before we get to Kersham and see what the overall effect is. But I figured it probably wouldn't be bad to just, you know, at least mark it and move on. So, Instar silent, in a silent house beside the sea, in a borrowed skin, we will seek the second change. I must find a place of power at the water's edge. Perhaps Sulochana can help if I bring her secrets about other places. Some part of you can roam in viper shape. Send it to accompany your followers to a place where it can perform the dance you must dance. If you have problems finding this place, talk to Sulochana about secret histories. So this has knock aspect. The knock permits no seal and no isolation. It thrusts us gleefully out of the safety of ignorance, and it is ascending. Not exactly me, but not exactly something else. And the sendings are one of the kind of unique features of the Dancer playthrough. This is going to be something that we'll be using to achieve our ascension. Now, we are still waiting on the Stag Doors riddle. We've long since got the top level of all of our different abilities, and then we currently have tentative evidence. If I recall correctly, I was going to try and send either someone or something to destroy the evidence, although it's not as, let's say it's not as urgent as it used to be, or maybe not used to be, but it's not as urgent because it's not yet damning evidence, but still something I want to keep an eye on. We have some books which I'll be working on. I suspect I'll probably translate first and then move on. I'm trying to remember why I was feeding my imagination up to a lesson learnt. I think it was because I needed the moth for the Agnes Club to get the Instar, but of course we've got that now, so that it wasn't as important. I do have the notoriety from the last expedition I went on. I suppose there's a bit of a question in terms of whether or not I would like to go to St. Agnes Hospital or Strathcoyne's residence and build up the notoriety, or if I want to try and get rid of the reputation first. We have a season of ambitions coming up, so that's, at least for 95 seconds, we don't need to worry about a season of suspicion. And I have a commission that I can turn in, but nothing else is quite gonna be relevant. So, it's not a terrible situation to be in, but there's definitely a few little things that I'd like to clean up if I can. Probably be spending quite a bit of time on it, but let's maybe start with... I'm actually going to go to Strathcoyne's. St. Agnes Hospital is the one that has the curse. Now, I'm going to have to deal with the curse at some point, but I genuinely do not remember which curse it is. Well, actually, hang on. Let me just... It's a question about whether or not I have disciples or believer. Yeah, so Edge... I don't think you use Edge against the curses. Yeah, you know what? Let's go to St. Agnes instead, then. It was mostly just I wanted to make sure that I was equipped against anything that we'd sort of be coming up against. In any case, St. Agnes Hospital. They did good work here once. Certainly there was a few too many amputations, but then there are individuals one would prefer not to walk the city streets. Only echoes walk the hospital halls now, but malice lingers in the air. We must search meticulously room by room. Okay, rest of it I think we'll just kind of run out the clocks and see where it comes from. It doesn't hurt to plan, but sometimes I can overdo it, so... I am more than a listen package of flesh and blood. Tonight they'll notice that. I felt all their eyes upon me. Afterwards I received a gift from an admirer. A little too personal for me to feel comfortable, but I can sell it on the second-hand market. Now, one of the things I kind of want to do a little bit better moving forward is just thinking about how I use my work slot. So we're doing all right with the contract at the Gaiety. Now for work, here are the main things that I want to be focusing on. One, fulfilling commissions, because those are going to get me, those are basically going to wind up getting me more Spintrea, which I can use for other activities. I'm doing fine as far as money is concerned, so it's not quite as important to me to get the funds. It's a nice side effect, you know. I'm gonna want to be going to the Gaiety simply because I have a timer on that, but the in-between times, those are times where I should be doing paintings. Those are times when I should be doing, you know, other activities that are a little bit more aligned with my overall goals. Now, in this particular case, we're in a bit of a tight spot just because the Grail and the Edgelore are not quite where they need to be. But an example of something that I might want to try and do, you know, in this case, would be to use this Consciousness of Radiance, which is a level 2 lantern, and maybe I would want to try and summon something with that. Now, in the case of 2 lantern, I actually don't think I have a whole lot of options there. But that's just maybe an example of something that I might want to do to try and basically just try and make the most of the work slot. I'm going to go back to the Gaiety in this case just because I don't actually think I have anything to do, but in general what I would like to be using the work slot for would be things that are more aligned with me achieving some of my goals, particularly the occult ones in terms of summoning and writing commissions. The stage awaits hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. So we're okay letting this turn into fascination just because I'm going to be able to use the fleeting reminiscence to cancel it out. That's sort of the plan. And at some point I would like to use the cracked noonstone with Valsine or Tristan. Or Layla. So our expedition plans for the next challenge. It'll consume funds. If I add funds, I could add funds now, or I could send another follower. And this is the Dry Soul Curse. We need Heart or Lantern to suppress this curse. Otherwise, it will not keep us from our goal, but it may trouble us later. Just for fun, I think I'll actually add Pope Clifton. So one of the things that I kind of like about the description for St. Agnes Hospital is, it's the description when you're about to start the expedition. It says, if we must search meticulously room by room. So this would imply Lantern anyway. So even though, I think most of the time that I do this, I incorrectly identify, the idea of searching being the obstacle. But because I associate Lantern, well, probably most align it with Lantern when you have, let's say, a forge challenge as well, related to sort of pits and cags as the or quags as the kind of the description gives, and say Cater and Hero, I think, is one that gives an example of that. You can use Forge to sort of build your way across, or you could use Lantern to sort of find the safe way through. So I actually kind of like the fact that to a certain extent this, I don't know if it's designed this way, but I always kind of feel like St. Agnes Hospital does a decent job of saying is like, if you read the details, you're going to have the information you need to kind of say, who do you want to put in the leader role and the assistant role? But it also gives you a little bit of a warning in terms of saying is that things are not always what they seem. So in this case here, it's enough to say, okay, well, you got the aspect that you needed right. But in this case, it was something... In this case, it wasn't like... I'm not quite sure what the obstacle would be, like a hidden room, maybe, because that is something that comes up in the Forgotten Mithraeum, for instance. But yeah, in this case here, you wouldn't normally associate the dry soul curse with trying to search. Anyways, in this case, I'm just adding lantern. I'm mostly kind of curious which one comes up if you do that. Do they give lantern priority or heart priority? There are more windows in my soul, but sunlight is not the only thing that passes through a window. Okay, so I think it's time for some translation. So we'll read the Rolls of Nuriel, marked with a tripled sign of the arcane contemplative order known as the Sisterhood of the Knot in Greek. So we'll grab our Greek, we'll grab the Rose of Nuriel, lock the study door, the work begins. And Season of Vision's coming up, so we do want to eliminate that fascination as soon as possible. In last night's dream, I was in the lodge of the Sage Knight behind the white door. It is difficult to remember exactly how I came there, and the mistress of this place, the woman with the dark glasses, was nodding as if I had asked her a difficult question. Of course I hadn't. I lost my speech when I passed the white door. How is it that I can speak, she said to me. I didn't come here through the white door. I'm not proud of what I did to come here, so let me tell you about something else. So if I want, I can combine that like I did earlier, but maybe not. That's not the most important thing for me to do right now. Oh my goodness. I keep forgetting with the new UI, it doesn't have quite the same memory for where the cards were, so I wind up doing a little bit of an adjustment when I reset between sessions. All right. So this is to get rid of the fascination. Obviously, that's a pretty significant threat to us right now. I'll just take the hit on the restlessness. We can dance it away, or we can use it in an induction. Although I would prefer to be using followers to get rid of the notoriety. Now the scissors, and then the knife, now the wood, and then the bones. Now the flutter of the moon, and then the dappling of the soul. He was blood, and so we will be. Oh, sorry, so will we be. I always get that wrong. Victor is a disciple. Victor has sharpened his cunning to a concentrated point. Okay, where's the gap? So, one there. Okay, I do want to repair the cracked Noonstone, and I do want to deal with the reputation. I have a feeling that because the mystique will be gone in a minute and a half, it may not be a bad idea for me to just try and clear out anyone else we don't have. So we've got Rose to take care of, and I think that may be it actually. Also, I might have put Victor in the wrong spot, but that's fine. We'll clear out all of the we'll clear out the any of the gaps as we need to. But yeah, I think it may just be Rose. I just want to take a second here and double check because I have a tendency to forget or to overlook details. Yeah, so Rose is our last one. Actually, I guess the only thing I would say does raise the question as to what I'm going to do with the restlessness, but we'll just say we will get rid of that when it comes time to dance. So, Wildwood Club, here we go. Rose is a slimus, but loyal. And then, guess it doesn't really matter what ceremony. Actually, no, sorry, it does matter. My follower will kneel as a novice and rise as an initiate. I will administer the necessary oaths myself. When I sense an opportunity, tonight I could attract attention if I cease to hold back, if I commit myself more fully. Tonight they'll notice that. I felt all their eyes upon me. Afterwards I received a gift from an admirer, a little too personal for me to feel comfortable, but I can sell it in the second-hand market. So here, we're definitely going to go back to the gaiety right away because we will want to use the restlessness as part of the dance. The stage awaits hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. We're strong enough in heart to be almost entirely secure against the curse, and out of curiosity, if we were to add Slee, Okay, so it does seem that heart is the... I won't say heart is the dominant one, but it doesn't get unseated by... having lantern present. The same self, I am no further along my path of change. In the movements of the secret forms, I must find my lesson. So lots of things we can do with the restlessness. I'm not too worried about it right now, but we do want to make sure that we get rid of the problem. The curse shrivels. Our power is stronger than the power that was here. The curse won't touch us. And we've prepared the text for study. A volume of the collected teachings of the Sisterhood of the Knot, that arcane contemplative order that existed in all histories, but in some was very powerful indeed. This was recorded by Nuriel and dedicated to St. Tryphon. So I'm going to translate the Rose of One's Eye next. Marked with the triple sign of the arcane contemplative order known as the Sisterhood of the Knot, but a fourth leaf has been added, disfiguring the sign in Greek. So I don't quite have a major reason to avoid particular kind of aspects showing up or side effects, but I generally kind of like to just have a big stack of books that I read through. I don't have a strong belief as to whether or not one way is better than the other. I do tend to find that because there are certain side effects to reading some books, having them all sort of stacked together can be helpful in terms of ingredients. But I don't at least have, maybe the best way I could say it is I don't have a strong enough memory for these sorts of things where I would, there's a couple like Sturm or How the End Begins or something like that. There are a couple where it's fairly obvious that there's going to be some kind of an effect. Something like Keon at Abydos, I'll be honest, I don't really recall if it gives dread, and to be honest, I suspect it doesn't, but, that's just because for me it's a little hard to keep track of everything on that. I tend to say it's like, okay, well, we'll just do it all in one go. If there's any bonuses, like we'll try and combine them and potentially cancel each other out. And then essentially I just try and exercise some judgment. So if it's a lantern text, if it's a winter text, I keep an eye on things such as Seasons of Vision, Seasons of Despair, things like that. Now the scissors and then the knife, now the wood and then the bones, now the flutter of the moon and the dappling of the soul. He was blood, and so will we be. Rose has sharpened her cunning to a concentrated point. Okay. Now, apparently I messed this up because I've got my change, my Instar Silence. So where did I put the Wildwood Club? Maybe we'll tuck it off to the side there. Oh, I think probably the Instar wound up taking that slot. Okay. So, what are we going to talk about? We could talk about the cracked Noonstone for repairs. We've got enough Bronze Bentrea for that. Better to talk about reputation, though. So, we should have a heart follower left. Where are you? This is the drawback about I don't have a seating plan here. It's first come, first serve. So, Clavette, like usual. Significant conversations in a smoky meeting room. What do I need from my follower? Not everyone is sympathetic to our aims, but if we have problems with our reputation, our disciple can probably smooth them over. So this one's a little more reliable for getting rid of notoriety, simply because I'm either going to have the notoriety from my previous expedition, or I'll have generated the new notoriety. So I'm not turning in commissions. That's in fact one of the reasons why I didn't turn in this commission. Essentially, if I can get rid of the notoriety before any of the other side effects of my actions, it just makes life a little bit easier in terms of keeping on top of potential threats. I felt all of their eyes upon me. Afterwards, I received a gift from an admirer, a little too gaudy for my taste, but I can sell it on the second-hand market. All right. So once again, same logic. We don't really have anything else to do, so we might as well just keep throwing ourselves into the gaiety. Now, to give you an example in terms of potential side effects, so Season of Despair is coming up in 16 seconds, so on its own, what I would do here is I would read Rose of Nuriel, Rose of One's Eye first, and then Keon at Abydos. And that's just, you know, that's kind of basically a little extra precaution. It doesn't stop me from doing anything that I would have done already, but I'm also not sort of willingly just kind of letting the, you know, the train hit me. Now, in practice, you know, unless I started reading Keon at Abydos right now, in fact, even then, I suspect there'd be a fraction of a second between generating the dread and it getting picked up here, so we'd probably be safe anyway. But this is actually one of the safer times to take it. But yeah, that's basically the reasons why. In this case, I would be reading these two first, because on the odd chance that this produces a dread that I didn't remember or didn't appreciate, it's just a little way that I can give myself an extra insurance policy. Mirrors are calm, the sun is steady, the glory recedes. I'm saying if that means anything. Okay, so, Rose of One's Eye, the heretical teachings of a disgraced offshoot of the Sisterhood of the Knot, that arcane contemplative order that existed in all histories. This was recorded by One's Eye and dedicated to Saint Respicius. Onto the Rose of Nuriel. Saint Tryphon, Nuriel explains, performed secret miracles in the name of she who bleeds and bears, and she who opens. Thus Saint Tryphon opened the way to the House of the Sun. Thus Saint Tryphon underwent the great birth and ascension to immortality. I actually think Saint Tryphon might have been the first antagonist in the Apostle run for me. Not the one that I did on these videos, mind you, but the first time that I did the Apostle, I'm pretty sure it was. Ooh, this is a good one. This gives me something to do with the work verb. Last night, in the great pavilion above the grey sprawl of the Bounds, a woman who once called herself Teresa Gallagher sat on gilt-fringed cushions and offered me a horn cup of dream wine. The wine is imaginary, she explained, but the cup is not. To navigate the Mansus, one must understand the distinction. Perhaps one day you'll join me on the pilgrimage, or I'll join you. So here, let us share a secret. And her breath tickled my ear. Okay. Looking good. You'll notice, because we put all of... I think there was some time that I'd taken in terms of trying to get the, the health up, and other than, just trying to get it out of the way, this is in fact one of the reasons why I was rather eager to move that up, because I wasn't expecting us to spend so much time, without the answer to the Stagdoor's riddle. But as it is, this is a nice little way for me to be able to continue going through the White Door, continue getting resources without having to worry about tying up my other resources, my physical, my attributes. Basically, I'm able to continue going to work while still being able to visit the Mansus through the White Door. Okay. With that in mind, I think we will head back to the White Door. Now I can approach the White Door through the Bounds. Now I can press my fingers to it, feel its chill, watch it swing open. As it opens, my mouth closes, tightens, heals over like a lost deformity. Around and about me is the cobalt light of the Mansus. And no text there. All right. Now, one other thing that I would be considering would be a painting of, particularly a Grail painting. But at the moment, I'm already working on my reputation from the expeditions and such, so I'll set that aside. I am, however, going to use this subtle fracture, so I think a Callagine wouldn't be a bad option. Although I don't have a lot of Forge. In fact, I suspect Laidlaw is my better Forge follower here. So we'll do our best. Yeah. Significant power of Forge as well as a little Winter and Knock. So I believe a Risen would also help, but let's see if we can do better. So if I bring in the Ecdysis Parable, we could bring in a Raw Prophet. No, sorry, we would need Grail. Well, actually, we're probably going to have the same problem here. So if we brought Saliba in, similar problems. We need a lot of Grail, and we don't have it. So I actually have fewer summoning options than I thought previously. So you could bring in one of my new edge followers for a percussagant. The percussagant, merciless and merry, heart will bring it, edge will constrain it. The standards of daylight society cannot apply to us, but perhaps we won't emphasize that point. Perhaps we'll rely on charm and good humor. I have supplied elegant platitudes about the high principles of our organization. What was this place? The door bore no sign. There were no windows. The walls were painted a rich violet, rich even now after the ravages of rain through the leaking ceiling. A rotting chair has leather straps on the arms. The floor is porcelain and runneled. There's a padlocked cupboard in the wall. It does not long resist our strength. It contains instruments tripped with flint and glass, instruments one would not expect a surgeon to use. It contains other matters of more interest to us, too. So there's the Spintrea, which we may use for our to repair the Noonstone. Stained gloves. This will be good for Grail, so put that in the collection. Again, I've got a few things to... I need to sort of better organize my space, but... Locksmith Streams, Trespasses. I think that's the 3rd volume? Yes. More Rose Pearl Dust, so we get 2 cracks at a heart painting as well. Notoriety. Actually, we can just collect. Good work, everyone. And I think we more or less got our locations right in terms of where everybody should go, so good work. So we're on to the last... Basically, we're on to the last expedition in the capital, Strathcoyne's residence. So I seem to recall... I hope I get this right. I think Strathcoyne's is the only one, that doesn't actually turn into a location for you afterwards. It's because it gets burned down. But I also seem to recall Strathcoyne's was the first expedition in the kind of early alpha. Could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure. Okay, so we're going to bring some moth people with us. So we've got Porter and Sylvia. And as always, we'll add the money and move on. So Mr. Strathcoyne is forbidden entry to his library. Unfortunate. Let's see what we can do. I should have read the description as well. The house to Mr. Strathcoyne, a collector of rare objects. Strathcoyne will not sell his treasures, but a sufficiently cunning accomplice might gain entry. So that's part of the reason why we brought moth followers, although I seem to recall again that it is actually watchers that we need to worry about. The courts of the heart. My own heart pumps more strongly today. Optimism is the spice which saves. So, because I have a notoriety sitting on the table, I'm going to spend one more time with Clovette getting rid of the reputation. And then following that, we might use the talk verb for something else. But I'm also just thinking that I'm probably going to be generating some notoriety from a painting as well. So not everyone is sympathetic to our aims, but if we have problems with our reputation, our disciple can probably smooth them over. Our expedition plans for the next challenge. It'll consume funds. I could add funds now, or I could send another follower. So, watchers, mortals, perhaps even ordinary mortals, but quite a number of them. They can be fought, seduced, or deceived. And the Rose of Nuriel. St. Tryphon began his ascension by passing the horned door. He continued it by learning the invocation Theatic, which Nuriel does not here record on account of its extreme holiness. And, Nuriel explains grimly, to achieve the 7 marks of the Great Birth, St. Tryphon consumed both those whose soul had left them, and even those in whom the soul remained. So here we have the Igavine Rite. Every door in the mansis requires its sacrifice before it will open. The Igavine Rites prescribe the manner of the sacrifice. So this doesn't necessarily give us something we didn't have access to before, because we do have Neville and Enid in the cult. And we have the Megalesian Incantation, so if I really need it, what I can do is level up the Grail lore to be able to do the commission. But of course we have a few books that we can read now, so it's not as important. The Great Mother remembers. Alright, on to the Rose of One's Eye. The offshoot, favored by One's Eye, the true sisterhood, followed St. Respicius in pursuing ascension in the name of the Door in the Eye, the merciless hour of light. St. Respicius failed, perhaps, because the larger sisterhood tracked him down and ritually strangled him, but One's Eye outlined steps for those who hope to succeed. I was hoping to get through Strathcoynes before the end of the broadcast. I know we're right at the edge, but we'll see if we can push it. Last night I visited the Lodge of the Sage Knight. My hostess manifested as an elegant woman with fashionably short hair and dark glasses. No, she admits, I don't need them any more than I need eyes. Allow me my sentimentalities. But you've come for knowledge, I expect. Here's a story I heard in my Carisham days. You're welcome to it, only remember me if you come to make the pilgrimage. Right, and as always, we pretty much default to the white door with Dream at this point. If there were other things I could do with Dream, I'd take it up, but this is just a nice little way of getting a surplus. Even if we don't have uses for the Forgotten Chronicles right now, which I actually think we do have uses for them. What am I trying to do? We already know... Sorry, I think I'm just being silly here. Yeah, so even if I didn't need the extra expeditions on the continent, it is kind of helpful sometimes to have a surplus when it comes to the secret histories, just because they're ones that, I don't know, I generally feel like I always have a shortage of, and being able to level them up. Like, so when we get to a point where we don't have any books and maybe we're waiting for something else to happen, it just gives me something that I can work on in the study verb. So generally, it's why I don't necessarily mind going down to lower level areas. All right, first the thump, the rattle and cry of the ceremonies it attends in the wood. Now here it is, shouldering its way through the world's skin, like a clawed and ruthless uncle or a headless flapping bear. So we don't really want to use the... Now that was unexpected. Don't necessarily want to use the percussagent against the Watchers, but it is a nice way of preserving it. So we will bring you in. And let's make it to the Gaiety. The stage awaits hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. Look closer. Closer still. Closer. Keep looking. Closer. Now close your eyes. Season of Suspicion coming up, so my guess here is that we will probably see the notoriety picked up no matter what, but let's see. Actually, no, it's a magnet, so it wouldn't be pulled out. Okay, we might be safe. The standards of Daylight Society cannot apply to us, but perhaps we won't emphasize that point. Perhaps we'll rely on charm and good humor. I have supplied elegant platitudes about the high principles of our organization. Emotions run higher than usual. There are things I'll never understand, and those things will always be precious, but just now I'm closer to them. Alright, I'm really messing this up. I recall my dream. This was the lodge of blue silk, flapping in the winds of the bounds at the Mansis edge, and here was its mistress, who welcomed me as she welcomes all travelers. Company is nice, she confided, but I still miss my Christopher. 10 years. 10 years and not enough. But we could not have been long together, not without touching each other, and you know what occurs when a man long lies with a long woman. Or perhaps you don't. I hope you don't. I won't tell you just in case. I'll give you a tiny gift. Alright, Meravine Idol goes back. We'll put the glimmering off into the corner. And, I'll tidy the board a bit, but I think for the most part I'm kind of happy where everything is. Seek in dreams, seek the Mansis. The third mark can be achieved only when one has passed the stag door. One must pass the wood. One must rise to the white door. The stag door awaits the light bearer in the sight of Girby. So here we've got Chiliarch's lesson, which we already had, and a Mansis glimpse. Alright. On to Kion at Abydos, a play dealing with the 9-year sojourn of a snow goddess in the Thracian city of Abydos by Apollo Fireweaver. It enjoyed success in London in its 1892 edition, when it was republished from, apparently, an older Greek text. An entity called Kion arrives in a blizzard and demands the city gates are barred. As Abydos falls under her spell, the dead return, but do not speak. And we should go to the white door. So yeah, sorry for the extra time. We should be getting to the end. Their bewilderment is our opportunity. We'll pass in silent secrecy. I stayed aloof. I moved the moves and stepped the steps and did what was required, and now they'll pay me. So that was me forgetting to put a little extra effort in, which is fine because, again, we're sitting on a lot of money, but I prefer to avoid I'd prefer to avoid those kinds of consequences. I think this time the world as it is, the mirrors are calm, the sun is steady, the glory recedes. I'm sane if that means anything. No fascination drives your visions. It's over for now. So there's a little bit of a danger in terms of what I'm about to do. We currently have 23 seconds where the weary detective is going to be searching. And we do have tentative evidence on the table right now, but I am actually going to start some esoteric art. So here we'll grab our art skill. In this case, I'll put all passion. I genuinely do not know if reputation plays it. Well, I would have to, because I don't have any other reputation to work with right now. You never know, this might be a living. But yeah, so like clearly here, if the timing's done, like if I had some reason to believe that within 23 seconds this painting would be completed, this would actually be a bigger problem for me. But again, I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. And I also kind of want to see if I can get by with using a lower level lore for this sort of thing. So we'll start with a Megalesian incantation and a vital pigment. So those who know will understand, as will the Suppression Bureau. Let's see if we get lucky. Optimism is the spice which saves. Excellent. So let's move on. If there's going to be notoriety, I don't think there's anything I can do about it right now. So let's get Valsine to work on the cracked Noonstone. We can begin to repair this, but it will take funds to purchase the necessary materials. I could spend money on better paints, or perhaps I could find more exotic pigments. If hunters found notoriety, they will try to use it to create or upgrade evidence. If they're meticulous, they'll always succeed. If they're erratic, they're more likely to fail, but they can occasionally create evidence even without notoriety. Strathcoyne's cozy sanctum. A fire smolders in the grate. Glass cases display hard-won trinkets. We must seize what we can quickly. Strathcoyne may have already telephoned the police. And for 8 years, the city is a place of slow death, frosty ecstasy, and silent beauty. But in the 9th year, a conspiracy of shouts is mounted against the quiet that Keown demands. The conspirators open the city gates, and a scarred man comes to drag Keown out by the hair. Summer returns, but the conspirators die of remorse. So there's a white ceremony for us. I think we've got that before, but we'll read the text nonetheless. When I speak it, my lips don't crisp with frost. Each time, this is surprising. And we will start the locksmith stream. Trespasses, the 3rd volume of Teresa Gallmer's examination of the parallels in the mystic dreams of artisans. In this volume, notoriously, Gallmer's prose begins to disintegrate, and it is not clear which dreams are in fact her own. To deal with that. Last night, in the billowing blue of the Lodge of the Sage Knight, I sat on velvet cushions and watched 2 dead contend with shining swords. They came with the place, said the woman who rules her now, the once called herself Gallmer. I was not the Sage Knight, if that's what you're wondering. He went higher in the Mansis long before I came here. My attention has drifted. The swords sparkle like falling water. The dead move like dancers. Okay, I should have a fleeting reminiscence to be able to deal with this fascination, so we'll just get that out of the way before it becomes a problem. And 16 seconds. I'm safe for now. My adversary has not enough evidence to bring a case against me, and they found no new clues. I made something unique, something extraordinary, something I will never dare to exhibit publicly. This cannot possibly see the light of day. It will earn... I will never dare to exhibit publicly. This cannot possibly see daylight. I will earn no funds. Okay, so it's going to take us a while before we do another one of those, but I still think it was worth it. I am going to have to go back to the Gaiety. There we are. She must not split the sun, but here we might imagine how she must have desired it. Or she did not split the sun, sorry, must not. An urgency of appetite. I wasn't really thinking about this. If I can do something to preserve it, I will. But for starters, we should just collect the rest and send Clovette to deal with it. Let's deal with our contract. Stage awaits, hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. So this might actually be a time we could bring a raw profit out. Out into the night. We escape unseen, but the next day there are reports of a fire at Strathcoyne's. Did someone knock a live coal onto the hearthrug, or did Strathcoyne destroy the place himself as part of some larger scheme? So I have the Journal of Alessandro Lacrosse, the Wainscott Histories. We've got the Locksmith Stream, Stolen Reflections, Traveling at Night, Volume 3, the Treatise on the Underplaces, and of course we return our Percussagant, Porter and Sylvia, and some leftover money. So obviously a lot of notoriety for me to be dealing with on the next round, but we have cleared out the capital, which I'm happy about. Am I missing something here? Oh, just funds. Cool. My follower is at work on the stone. But yeah, pretty productive run. Admittedly, it's like 10 minutes over, so I apologize for those of you who are used to the half hour and block it out. I will try to keep things on time in future. But we finished out our expeditions on the capital. We're pretty much going to move directly into the next batch of expeditions. The only reason I would maybe avoid doing that would be I do have a lot of notoriety, and it might be nice to kind of cool it off. But on the other hand, I also have a percussagant to sort of help me, just get through stuff. So it's kind of hard to turn around and say, oh, okay, well, I guess the summon's not that important. No, it's important. I want to deal with it. So we'll probably just go straight to the next batch of expeditions. I'll try and use the urgency of appetite. It would be nice to have a raw profit, or at least something to deal with the evidence, although with 190 seconds, I'm not too worried about it. And then, of course, the talk verb, for the most part, is going to be used to get rid of notoriety, although I suppose that comes at the expense of turning in the commission. But that's all stuff that we will worry about later on. Thank you very much for watching, particularly for a longer episode. If you've not followed the channel yet, please consider doing so. There's a subscribe button down below, and if you'd like to be notified of the next episodes, you can hit the little notification bell. And of course, if you did like the episode, please consider leaving a like, or alternatively a comment, or of course do both. I do like hearing from all of you, and I've actually gotten a nice little batch of comments recently. So those are all, they always make me feel good, so thank you for those. And as always, it's never expected, but they do help me get noticed, and it is wonderful to interact with a lot of you, particularly because some of you have been stopping by the live stream as well. In any case, I will be back on Wednesday. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Take care.